All right, guys, today in class we learned about the distributive property, and the distributive property talks about giving things out or distributing a number to a whole bunch of other numbers. So first thing we have to do in this process is we need to KCC anytime we see subtraction. And the better and better we get with KCC, the less we're going to K and the more we're just going to CC. So we're going to C, and then we need to check our expression to see if there's any missing ones. The way to tell if we have missing ones is to look for variables that don't have numbers in front of them, and also negative signs that are floating around not attached to a number. And we kind of have both here. So this x is not just a negative x, it's a negative 1x. Now we are to the actual distributive property. So if you see, this 5 is touching the parenthesis, which means that 5 is being multiplied by everything inside the parentheses. So we're going to take the 5 and we're going to distribute it to the 12. And our way of remembering this is that the 5 is going to say hi and multiply with 12, which equals 60. And then he has to be polite and multiply and say hi with everybody. So 5 times negative 1 would be negative 5x. Now we are done in this situation because these are not like terms, so we're not going to combine those. So our final answer is just 60 plus negative 5x. Okay, next example. This is an example of the distributive property because I do have something outside touching the parenthesis, but right now it's just a negative sign. So my first step is I'm going to KCC. I cannot KCC because I don't have any subtraction. A lot of people want to KCC this, but it's not subtraction, that's a negative sign. Okay, we're not minusing the parenthesis, we're multiplying by a negative. So we are not going to KCC that. What we are going to do, though, is we are going to look for any missing ones. So I see both situations. I see a negative sign floating by itself, so we have to give it a number. And I see a variable without a number, so we're going to have to give that one a number as well. Now, we're going to distribute the negative 1. So what we say is like the inside of the parentheses is like a party, and the guy on the outside is going to go inside and say hi and multiply with everybody at the party. So negative 1 times 1 is negative 1w, and negative 1 times 9 is negative 9. Now again, this is my final answer. I am done. I cannot combine these because they are not like terms. 9 does not have a w on it. Okay, so here's what I recommend. I recommend you pause the video, try this one on your own, and then unpause it and see if you solved it correctly. Step 1, KCC. So I do see I have subtraction here, so I'm going to change the subtraction to addition and then change my 5 to a negative 5. Now I'm going to look to see if I have any missing ones. I don't see any negative signs that are just floating around without a number, and my r already has a number in front of it, so I don't have to add any missing ones in this problem. So now I just go straight to distributing. So the negative 2 needs to be multiplied to everything inside the parentheses. So negative 2 times 6 is negative 12r. And so as not to be rude, negative 2 is going to say hi and multiply with our negative 5, and a negative times a negative is a positive 10. So again, we cannot combine these because the 10 does not have an r, so that is our final answer. Next one, first thing, KCC. I notice no subtraction. Again, this is not a subtraction sign, that is a negative sign, so we are not going to KCC that. And then I'm going to look for missing ones. Notice that my G already has a 3 in front of it, so I don't need to add a 1 there, but I do have this pesky negative sign out front that's floating by itself, so we have to give it a 1. Now, this negative 1 outside is telling us that it needs to be multiplied by everything inside my parentheses, so we need to distribute the negative 1. So negative 1 times 3 is negative 3G, plus negative 1 times 7 would be negative 7. I can't combine these because they are not like terms. The 7 is missing a G, so that is my final answer. Okay, a little bit more complicated here. Now we have a fraction outside of our parentheses. So first thing I do is I KCC, and I'm going to look for any missing ones. My variable has a number in front of it already, and I don't have any negative signs floating around without a negative. So what we're going to do is we're just going to jump straight into the distributive property. So this 1/2 needs to be multiplied by everything inside the parentheses. So what's interesting is we can say instead of 1/2 times 10, we can replace the times with the word of, which is going to help us here. So 1/2 of 10 is 5. and we have to go say hi and multiply with the other person at the party. And 1/2 of -4 is -2t. Again, I can't combine because they are not like terms, so that is the final answer. Okay, next problem. This one's a little bit different because of this +2 sitting on the outside. So we really have to think about this one. So before we start, I do want to go ahead and KCC. So I see my subtraction sign, so I see C, and I want to add any ones in. So I see that my D is all alone, so I'm going to go ahead and add in a 1 in front of that. Now, when I get to the distributive property, I have to be really careful. I need to decide which number gets distributed to the parentheses. Is it the 7 or the 2? And in this situation, it's going to be the 7 because the 2 is not touching the parentheses. The 2 is being added to the parentheses. So we can't say hi and multiply with the 2. It's addition. So the 7 is what's going to say hi and multiply. And 7 times 1 is 7D. So let's not be rude. Let's go say hi and multiply with the -1. And 7 times -1 is -7. Now we can't forget about this 2. So we're going to draw an arrow down and write that in. Now, some of you guys think you should stop here, but hopefully you notice that we have some like terms. So we're not fully simplified yet. So we have a -7 and a +2. Now, the 7D doesn't have any like terms with it. So now we're going to make our table to combine our like terms. So we've got D's and we've got numbers. In the D column, I only have a 7D. And in the number column, I have a -7 and a 2. So 7D just stays 7D plus -7 plus 2. I see my signs are different, so I'm going to subtract. 7 minus 2 is 5. And I have more negatives, so my answer is going to be -5. That is the answer. Okay. Again, why don't you guys pause this one, try it on your own, and then unpause to see if you're correct. First step is to KCC. So I find my subtraction, and I change. I look for any missing ones. I don't have any negative signs that are floating around without a number, and my R already has a number in front of it, so no missing ones. So now we're going to jump right into the distribution phase, which means my 1/3 needs to get multiplied by everything inside the parentheses. So again, let's replace the word times with of. So instead of 1/3 times 3, let's do what's 1/3 of 3. So if I have 3 things and I divide them into groups of 3, I have 1 in each. So now we're going to do 1/3 of 9. So if I have 9 things and I divide them into groups of 3, I have 3 things in each group. Okay, so that is our answer. We cannot simplify. Hopefully this video helped, and come see me if you need additional assistance.